in a minute.
Someone's got beans. Spill
Half
them.
an hour. Half an hour. Right now, we're too close to being on again.
We're on.
We're on. See what
We're
I mean?
back.
This is why I didn't get into any nasty details about things that are inappropriate or swearing. I apologies to our listeners
for our
us
scheduled
dropping
bathroom break.
There was an unscheduled bathroom break. I hope you all had good pee. And now we're back. Talking about
You're going to talk about the amygdala.
I was going to talk about the amygdala. So the amygdala, so I told you guys earlier a little bit about the amygdala in the previous incarnation of this episode before we got dropped from the internet. But then I was interrupted and I had to mute myself. So the amygdala part of the brain. And so what the amygdala does when it sees something dangerous, it starts going in a loop. So instead of allowing your thought processes to return back to the frontal lobe, it goes in a loop back and forth. And then you notice that that's happening because you have obsessive thoughts, like recurring thoughts, recycling thoughts, right? So, for example, say for me, it happened when my boyfriend used to stay out really late and I was worried about him, that he got hit by a bus or something, walking home drunk when I was in my early 20s. So I would go, oh no, he's probably dead. Oh no, he's probably dead. Oh no, what if something happened to him? And it was basically the same thought on repeat for like until he got home. So I would get stuck in this amygdala hijack and I would like continue this gear going back and forth, back and forth. The reason for it being is because a part of my brain, my ego or something, associated my boyfriend being safe with safety for me. And if he's gone, then I'm unsafe. And therefore the fear kicks in and then I'm on repeat. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Fortunately, I grew up past that. And I'm no longer scared of other people disappearing from my life.
But that's certainly something that a lot of people experience and have trouble.
Most of my clients that I mentioned that
with,
to,
right?
most of the clients I've mentioned that to have said that, yeah, I've experienced that repeating, recurring thought pattern.
Same.
Even maybe you yesterday, Willow, when you were upset at the phone conversation you were having, and then you had the repeating thoughts.
Yeah. And I mean, I say that to my clients all the time. I don't use the term amygdala hijack, although I probably should, because it's a great term, but I haven't reached the point where I've explained to a lot of my clients, like, they know what the amygdala is, but they're still in the recognizing phase of trying to acknowledge what is actually going on, and then you can put a label to it. But yeah, it's a common thing. It's part of the amygdala is part of the limbic system, which is your emotional brain. So it triggers the emotions that come with being triggered into a fight or flight or freeze response state.
But it's almost like being injected. Like every time my brain would flip to, oh my God, he's probably dead, right? It would be like a new injection of cortisol, adrenaline,
cortisol and
whatever.
Cortisol and adrenaline and all of the fight, flight, or freeze
emotion or hormones.
Chemicals.
Yeah.
So
chemicals.
There's actually another one. I cannot remember what the dosage was, but it was, I want to say it was about 8 milligrams. So when your body goes into the freeze response and you can disassociate on random occasions, sometimes your body can produce up to, I want to say, 8 milligrams of endogenous morphine, which is a natural occurring sedative and muscle relaxer.
I don't care drug?
It's
whatever.
I can't feel.
Don't care.
I can't feel. It's not that you don't care, because you still care, but you can't feel. You can't understand. And I see this happen in myself. If I am around someone that I deeply care about and I trust their opinion and I respect a lot, if they raise their voice at me, my body will go into fight mode and I'll get angry or I'll get really upset, and then I'll get into flight mode and I'll get really shaky and trembly and I'll want to leave the room. And then if I don't do either of those things, if I just stay there, all of a sudden they'll be talking to me and I'm like, like flat face, no muscle tone in my face. Like there's nothing showing. There's no emotion except for I'm not here. And that's when that happens, is the body is just producing it's a numbing agent.
So you leave the room one way or the other. If you can't physically leave the room, you leave the room on an emotional
I leave
level.
me.
Yeah.
That's a word that came to my mind just a while ago as well, like, becoming numb or numbing. So apathy is basically something that numbs your life experience, while obsession seems to excite it, but then it gets caught in it, and it's a repetitive thing which doesn't really lead anywhere. So it's like a dead end thing.
Yeah.
Well, in just describing the map of consciousness, desire, that kind of obsession is higher than apathy. So to some degree, you could say that people that are trying to improve their situation are moving from apathy to obsession. It feels better to them to be in that state than the other, but it's still a negative consciousness, and it's still really negative towards their own character development, their own growth or improvement. And so to some degree, that's why it is a false dichotomy, is because they're giving you a choice that to some degree does do something that improves your situation, but not necessarily really creates a circumstance where you understand what's really going on.
I like to look at it as it's a pendulum. So you know how you have like the pendulum that swings back and forth. So imagine that about here is a line, and the line is where you don't want to be. So if you swing too far this way, you get up to that line. And if you swing too far this way, you get right back up. You're just at a different spot on that same line, that same frequency, the same vibration. But because it feels different, that's the key. It feels different because what you're trying to do is to not feel what you're feeling right then. So you switch to something else, and you don't, because you're not aware of that middle ground, or you swing through it so quickly, you think that this is where you need to be, when in reality, you'd have to kind of do this little motion where you kind of like ease back into it, and then you come back to your natural, regulated, resting state.
Well, in the idea of harmony is like balance, right? So like creating a circumstance in your life when you have balance, you have a sense of control. And that would be there again is like, it doesn't necessarily relate to either one of these though, because it's not really the center of these two. It's beyond the center, because both of these are negative consciousness.
Yeah.
But it is about knowing yourself that really gets to the point that
So how can you
find
get out?
things like joy.
Say you're between apathy and obsession. How do you get out? How do you climb the rope up?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head right there. It's about knowing yourself. I think, Mike, you just said it. And yeah, and you mentioned joy as well, which we touched upon earlier. So is that something, that is not there already, that you have to look for? Or is that something that is already there, that has been there, that has just been covered up, and that you can cut through? So what's at the bottom of the apathy? What's at the bottom of the obsession? It is, in a way, the search for joy. Because the apathy is like you're trying to get away from, and you're trying to ignore that which does not bring you joy. So you have identified that already, and you just have that strategy to try to get away from it. And obsession is, trying to find the joy in something that ultimately doesn't give you the joy, because it keeps you repeating, in that obsession and that obsessive behavior or pattern. So then,
wait, you're telling me that pharmaceutical drugs don't bring that
Joy? Yeah, pharmaceutical drugs, joy, yeah.
I thought it was in
everyone can hear the
cars
sarcasm.
and fashion.
Cars, yeah, fast cars. Fast cars that
And
look like
new
somebody
outfits.
stepped on them. Yeah, how?
Food.
Why? Why are the cars
Oh,
that are
food.
most expensive the ones that look like Godzilla stepped on them and they're squished? Because regular cars are tall, but then the expensive ones are really squished. Why is
Well,
that?
you can see this dichotomy in cars too, because a lot of times when people have something to prove, they'll have their car either super lowered, so that they have the most control over the ground and they can go really fast and do all these things,
Oh,
or
is
they
that
have
what
them
it
really
is?
jacked up, like pavement princesses. That's what I call these people, pavement
Pavement.
princesses.
Because they don't want to touch
um,
the pavement.
they don't want to touch the pavement, and they want their cars all jacked up, and they're big souped up, heavy duty vehicles, but they don't haul anything. They're not there for any particular purpose except for to make you feel big and strong and like no one's gonna mess with
And
you.
jacked up.
So you either want to be sneaky and get through things, low to the ground and have control over it that way, or you want to have control by overpowering everyone.
So which one would be apathy?
So
The low
this
to the ground? Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was just going to say, we could trigger a lot of people here because there's a lot of obsessions when it comes to things like cars, uh, certainly a lot of merchandising things. There's definitely a lot of obsessions, but I would say that in regard to men, I think of a lot of guys that supposedly consider themselves wealthy or well off. They have a lot of obsessions with things like cars, for example, or maybe some of their other possessions. But it is an obsessive behavior, and that's probably not a good thing. That definitely indicates something needs to change. Something I heard just today, I was in another meeting and we were talking about negative self-talk and how to get yourself out of that. The suggestion was to actually put it in past tense. So whatever the negative self-talk is, you put it in the past tense. Like I used to, like I'm not good at math. I'm not good at technology. What the proper thing to do is say I didn't used to be, or I used to be bad at math. And then the second thing is an affirmation, like I am willing to learn how to
I
do
am learning.
technology.
I am learning is a
I
better
am learning,
affirmation, because
or
then no
I am
matter
in the
how little or
process.
much. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
see,
that's
the tool that I use, because negative self-talk is something that's super common with trauma survivors. It's almost impossible to avoid, to be honest. So instead of asking any of my clients to say, like, let's use the phrase, for example, I am stupid. I don't ever repeat that. I don't ever say, you're stupid. I say, you feel stupid, don't you? Is that what you're feeling right now? And it brings them back to the present, but it also acknowledges that this is a feeling and you're having it, and that is exactly how you feel, and that's okay. The reason that I kind of started coming to this conclusion on how to speak to those negative thoughts without being negative towards them, like telling the negative thoughts to go away, that they're not worthy, that you can't have them and they can't be there, that's also negative self-talk. There was a passage in The Body Keeps the Score where a woman she was spiraling in her talk, and she eventually started taking responsibility for her own sexual abuse. She said, I should have done this, I should have done that, I let it happen, and it's my fault. And the therapist said to her, well, you were just a girl. It was the grown man's responsibility to set boundaries. It wasn't your fault. And this is the part that I had to like read out loud to people that I cared about. And I was like, I've had these feelings. Her response was, she had been trained by older men to concede, like to accept whatever they had to say. And she said that she was very excited that she trusted this therapist so much that she could say, I know that I'm not responsible. So when I tell you I feel responsible, it makes me feel stupid because I know that I shouldn't. So it's either I know that I shouldn't feel responsible, but I still have this feeling. and which one is right. When in reality, it's, I know that I am not responsible for this, but I also feel responsible and I'm having that emotion right now. And until you accept that you're having that emotion, you can't actually deal with it. If you constantly try to get away from it, you're diminishing that lesson that needs to be corrected or relearned.
Yeah. But both are true because it's both that her fault and not her fault at the same time. You know, because she probably had some skills that she could have used, but she didn't because she trusted these men, right?
Or, you know, I don't even like to use fault because that induces a lot of shame, because it's not ultimately their fault, especially if you are a child. You don't
Yeah.
have the skills, you don't have the comprehension, and you have to trust the people who take care of you. It is not your fault, but it is a normal reaction to want to take control of the situation and find a way that you could have done something. It's a normal survival technique. I don't know where I was going with that. I saw my mind just blanked out. It was like, sorry, bye.
Yeah.
Well, in a lot of cases, when people are feeling apathy, that actually could be a positive. Whereas being obsessed, is there any positives in regard to being obsessed?
Well, what if you're obsessed about success?
What is success?
What if you come from some very humble beginnings, but then you prove to everybody and everything that single-handedly you can raise yourself from hovel to mansion?
But is that obsession or is that something else? Because there's,
Determination,
I mean,
maybe?
yeah.
I would
So
consider it
I'm
an
not-
obsession.
It can be both, right?
Well,
What do you guys think?
If
I
that's
think
the
the
only thing you
tricky-
identify with and the only thing you do, and that's the most and only important thing in your life, then I think it could be an obsession, yes.
I think the tricky
like-
part about this is understanding that these are just tools. It's what you do with them. You can, you know, just like the superstar and the super depressed person after a sexual abuse, they're both a survival and a protective measure. And if you're using them appropriately and you're aware that you're using them, you can gain a lot. I mean, a lot of my skills in reading people and helping people come to a safe place where they feel comfortable talking about these shameful feelings, came from how I had to deal with my own abuse. But it's also really hard to not become obsessed or completely apathetic. You have to swing back and forth between these two and find your center.
Yeah. Dennis?
Obsession we talked about control before, isn't that an attempt of controlling your state? You know, you're obsessed with something, with success, with the football team paraphernalia, whatever it is. So you had this positive moment, or you think that that's, you know, the thing for you, that's the only thing, you're obsessed with that. So you're trying to control your state, you're trying to induce a state, you know, that is, you know, it's looking for joy in a way, and you're trying to look for it that way. And, you know, it can't be successful because it's not gonna put you in that original state of joy that you could be in by relinquishing the seeming control that you're looking for in this world. So yeah, like seeking control and you know, knowing that you have certain control over things in your life, which ultimately also is just an illusion, because really and truly, you know, that only goes so far. Yes, we are in control. I don't know, we can open the fridge and close the fridge, and we can do this and we can do that. But ultimately, it is elusive that we have any control over anything. Because, you know, how do you control life? You know, do you control your life, or is that something, you know, that is being expressed through you? And then,
Are you talking to me right now? Because I feel like I'm
Choices.
controlling you. I'm watching that, whether we're online, I'm seeing if we're missing any chats. I'm trying to be in control, but I don't have the tools.
see right there.
Are you
And
obsessed with being in control, Agnieszka?
No.
And
Oh,
isn't
your body language is so lying. Your
and
whole body language is just like, yes.
Yes.
Try to protect yourself. You're trying to protect it.
so what does that ask then? Like if you recognize that, you know, you're seeking that and that's what you feel like you're lacking that control. So I would throw in surrender. So can you surrender to the fact that, you know, there's things, and maybe more than you even than you can actually see or realize right now, that are out of your control, and that it's like, you know, it's like a rat race, like it keeps on going around, like seeking for
You
control.
mean you're okay hosting from now on?
Are you okay with him hosting from now on? That's the
I don't know if
question.
Colleen is ready for that though.
Yeah.
Well, right now we can't get the software to work on my laptop, so
I could tell something did resonate. Something about that surrendering, it resonated with you because your whole body language changed, and you were like, "Huh."
well, because I was like, can I trust Dennis? Yeah, I can. You know, of course I can. So how could I be in better hands? But then I'm like, but he's a Luddite.
He's done very well so far.
He's awesome. You're awesome.
So what
See
about
how much time
apathy
we
and,
have
and
left.
control then? So
7 minutes.
so is apathy then not also recognizing, like it's a withdrawal, right? It's a limiting condition. You're withdrawing, and maybe it's a recognizing that, oh, actually I'm not in control of this situation. Like I don't know, I can't stop him talking. I can't stop doing this and that. So the reaction that you have is apathy, and kind of cutting yourself off and shutting yourself off, which is limiting your
It's a
your
total
experience.
surrender.
But that's also like trying to get in control, right? By not being controlled by that condition that you don't want. But then
Well, but
it also it misses the point, because if you could surrender then and find you know, and be all right and be okay with the fact that you are the perceived you, the personhood you is not in control of anything much at all, then you could relax, and you know, and you could interact, and you could not be apathetic and not be obsessed, but you could just be okay and in harmony with life as life is, without having to control or having even the need to control it in any way.
yeah, I would say that in regard to that, maybe apathy is like a recognition of the lack of control, and just I think just accepting that you can't control whatever that is that you're having that feeling about, that in itself is a recognition of something that maybe it's just something that you need to let go of, that whatever that is something that you can't control. And so just letting it go and then working towards something that you can control might be a much more healthy thing. Not necessarily something you want to be obsessed about, but something that you know, makes a difference for you. It's something you're interested in. It's something that drives some of those other possible emotional states like courage or joy or reason or acceptance.
Like you learn little things. Oh,
Or
I can,
love.
like Willow, you were saying earlier. Okay, I can learn to, you know, manipulate this, and I can learn to, you know, take control of that, and open the fridge and close the fridge, and I don't know, go for a walk or do train and do whatever I can do. So being joyful in exploring the things that you can manipulate for the time being, but at the same time recognizing that, you know, full control is something that you will never have, and that, you know, you're probably not supposed to have, because you know, if we were to be in full control, that would mean we would be in tap into consciousness, right? We would be fully conscious of who we really are, and that would relinquish the need, because if
Control.
yeah, you know,
I'd like to point out.
if you accept that, if you're fully conscious, then we would know, we would live in that knowingness that everything that is, you know, is the way it is, because, you know, that is us as well. So it's like oxymoron, like it's like we are limited consciousness, and you know, we express ourselves and we can control the fridge door and this and that, and that's good as well, and that's necessary as well to interact and to live, you know, to be in this reality. But at the same time, we are that which is working through us and which is coming through us, and therefore that's a whole different level of control then.
What did you write down, Michael?
Well, I was going to say that, you know, in regard to our other show about love, I think there is a mischaracterization of love that kind of is along the lines of obsession. And certainly a lot of people express love for things like their favorite football team and their favorite whatever inanimate object, when that's really an obsession. That's not love, and that's certainly something that needs to be looked into too. Because when you're loving things that are things like cars, or at least you're describing it as that, and you're kind of understanding it as that, more than likely that's not the case. It is an obsession, and it's and maybe
This
Cars
goes
in
back to
general or your specific car?
I don't have a car, so I don't know.
Because I think
This
it's
goes back
okay
to
to
what I
love
was-
your own. Go ahead.
what I was saying about the pendulum swinging, where, you know, if you're feeling apathy and then all of a sudden you're obsessed with something, it feels good because it's something different. And this happens with like love and loneliness, for lack of a better term, where if you're really lonely, getting any sort of attention or having something being obsessed about it can feel like that's where you need to be. You're at the other end. You're like, you've made it this far, but in reality, you have to come back down to the middle. Like, love is here, not at these two extreme ends, but because it feels so different, you don't really have, the only thing you have to compare it to is the loneliness that you felt. And I have a couple of girls who struggle with this, where I think they are very lonely, because they don't. It took me a long time to accept that I didn't know what love actually felt like, because I thought it was that, you know, infatuation, the attention, that feel good feeling when you're just like, this is amazing, this feels so good. That's part of it, but it's not what love feels like. And understanding that those two ends of the spectrum don't equal love or loneliness, like, that's a hard thing to accept.
What did you came to feel love is?
A couple of words ran through my mind. I don't really have a like hardcore definition. I'm going basically off of what I feel is safety, contentment, security, but not in the way that people think of. It's not like, you know, nothing's ever going to happen to me. It's having a solid foundation to stand on. That was an acceptance that you don't have to be perfect, but you also don't have to be the worst case scenario all the time. You can flip, you kind of understanding that about here is where you want to be. I don't have a word to describe it, to be honest.
I think acceptance is a good word. That actually is one of the lower things on the scale of the map of consciousness that we refer to. That would be 350 and love would be 500. So acceptance is a great deal of the step towards love, I think. Being accepted by somebody else is definitely feeling love, or at least a good portion of it.
That's, to be honest, now that we're getting a little bit deeper into it, acceptance is probably the closest thing that I have to relate to what real love actually feels like. Also, surrender, like that word really resonated with me. Surrender, vulnerability, acceptance, and courage. But it's all a very personal thing. These things, if they're tied to external sources, it's not the full and complete feeling. It has to be tied to you.
That's a beautiful ending for this show.
Hoorah.
So,
All right,
anything
well,
else?
everyone, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your patience in regard to our little hiccups and so forth. I know it seems to be a common occurrence here lately, and we are making some adjustments as we change things around in our
System.
circumstances here.
Yes.
But with that
Thank you
said,
very much
thank
for
you so
listening.
much.
Appreciate all of you.
Yes, shout out to Shambhavi and to everybody. Shambhavi is sending us a big heart, and to everyone else who commented today. Thank you so much for your input and your time and for sticking with us. And we
Thanks
hope
very
we
much.
could provide some value.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So now for the
You're
outro.
closer, one step closer to accepting yourself.
There you go.
Yes. All right. So until we see you again. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.